Hey guys, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about accumulating wealth. This is one of my favorite topics. And people have different reasons to accumulate wealth. They have different goals with accumulating wealth, and there's not one right or wrong way to go about it. Not one right or wrong reason to do it. But I want to tell you a little bit about my story and what motivates me and what I'm trying to build. There'll be some things that you can take from that and hopefully implement for yourself. Why do we build wealth? And when I'm talking about wealth here today, I'm talking about monetary wealth. We could think about wealth in our life with a lot of different things, relationships and quality of life and where we live and all these things. But specifically today, I want to talk about accumulating financial wealth and why would we do that? And so for me, my biggest thing with accumulating wealth is having the freedom to be able to make choices and do things that I want to do without being restricted by money. If I want to go on a vacation, I want to be able to take that vacation and see somewhere in the world. I love to golf. So if I want to be able to play a nice golf course or be a member at a private club, which I am, I want to be able to do that. I don't want to be restricted and I need to make those decisions because I don't have enough money. So there's a freedom component to accumulating wealth that's very important to me. Retirement goes along with that. So, someday we all want to be financially independent, meaning we don't have to work to survive. And then you're truly free and you can spend your time doing the things that you most enjoy doing with the people you love to do those things the most with. And so that freedom component, I think, is very, very important for me. And that's the biggest motivator for me with accumulating wealth. Stability is the next. I'm in a 100% commission business. I've been a 100% commission in a 100% commission occupation for almost 16 years. And my wife Danielle would confirm for you, we've definitely gone through some major ups and downs over that 16 years. And I can remember when I was 25 years old, that was the first time I made 100 grand. I'm like, that's it. I'm rich. I've made it. It's all good. Let me get a Bentley and I'm on my way. I didn't get a Bentley, but I made that first like really good year of income and started to elevate my lifestyle. And then the market promptly turned and my income went down. And all of a sudden we're accumulating credit card debt, right? And so I didn't save during those good years. And then when things turned, which they always do, and my income went down, we were in trouble and we were racking up debt. And so that's a stressful time to go through. So as you accumulate wealth, you accumulate liquid savings that you can fall back on. It gives you stability. And especially for someone in a profession like I'm in, when you go through those downtimes, if you've got a lot of cash reserves, then you're not racking up debt. You're not super stressed because you can fall back on that savings. So stability is super, super important component of accumulating wealth. And now that Danielle and I have children, we have a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old boy. Providing stability is even that much more important because we're caring for our children and need to provide a stable environment for them. And that's so important in those young years for kids. And then that brings me to legacy. So I want to give my kids the opportunity to live the life that they want to live. And I was very fortunate that my parents paid for my college. I grew up in Seattle and wanted to get out of Seattle and get out of the rain. And my parents told me, I kind of wanted to go to school out of state. And they said, well, you could go to school out of state and pay for college yourself, or you could go in state and we'll pay for your school. So I said, perfect, I'll stay in state. And went to college in Washington and then moved to Arizona right after that. But that got me out of school without student loan debt. And so many of our clients that we see today and so many people I talk to today have thousands of dollars of student loan debt coming out of college. And that's a huge burden. And that's a lot of debt that you have to pay off. It's a monthly payment that grows over time. And for me, for our kids to be able to get out of college debt free and have that clean slate to begin their adult lives is very important. And I hope to be able to pass down assets to our kids and create that generational wealth that will help them and in turn help their kids. And so the legacy goes forward. So freedom, stability, legacy. Those are the motivating factors for building wealth. And that's what drives me to go for it. So, let's talk a little bit about, well, how do we get there? What are the steps to get there? So the first is you've got to keep really good track of the money you're spending, and you've got to save the money that you're spending. So we want to have this balance of like living a great life and enjoying the money that we have and using it while we're here, because ultimately none of us know when our last day is going to come. So you don't want to be so extreme with saving and so tough on yourself about never allowing yourself to enjoy the money that you have. You don't want to end up in a situation where you die early and you never enjoyed anything. You saved it all. But at the same time, you don't want to spend everything and have nothing left. So there's a balance. So we've got to build a budgeting system to track this. And so I use a system of having 3 bank accounts, 2 checking and 1 savings account. So I have a primary checking account where all of our paychecks go into, and I pay our bills out of that account. I have a secondary checking account that is linked to our debit card. So I will put a budgeted amount in that account each month, and that's our spending money for that coming month. And so if we swipe our debit card, it'll come out of that account. And then at the end of the month, I'll take the money in that account and pay off our credit card. We do all of our charges on our credit card. So we've got two checking accounts and then a savings account. So we're putting liquid savings into the savings account. So with the savings account, we want to have a minimum of 3 months worth of expenses in savings in our regular bank account. So that's super liquid money that you could access at any time. That's your minimum reserve that you would tap into if you needed money right away. For someone like me who's 100% commission, I should have at least 6 months of monthly spending in my savings account, because my income can go up and down so much month over month depending on what the market's doing. Okay, so what we do is every month the paychecks are going into our main checking account. At the end of each month, I pay all my bills out of that main checking account. I make sure that I save 20% of the money that was deposited into that account. So I'm saving 20% of every paycheck. So 20% goes into my savings account. Once I've hit my 6 months reserves, then the 20% is going into a brokerage account. So then I set up a budget for spending that month, and I transfer that money into my debit checking account. And all of our expenses for the month, for the most part, we swipe on our credit card, but keeping that credit card balance within what I've got in the debit card checking account. And then at the end of the month, I'll pay off the credit card with the money that we set aside in that debit checking account. Okay, and then we've got a brokerage account. So our brokerage account we have with a financial advisor. You could set up an account through E-Trade with just a balanced portfolio, and that's something we'll get into on another show. But the important thing with this is that every month when you're paying your bills, you've got to hit that 20% savings. So if you're not saving 20% of your income every month, then you've got to adjust your spending or you've got to earn more money. So one of the two. And for me, I like to spend money. I'm the spender in our relationship with Danielle and I. And so for me, having money that goes automatically to our financial advisor works best. So on the 30th of every month, there is an ACH that comes out of our main checking account to our financial advisor every single month. So I've got to make sure that that money is in there to be paid to him. And then that money goes to him and it's out of my hands, and it's much more difficult for me to get. So the farther away from me I can get it, then the less that I notice it's there and the less I'm likely to spend that money. So that's very important. 20% every month, and then get that money out of your hands if you're someone who likes to spend. If you're someone who's really good with the savings, then you could manage your own brokerage account like in an E-Trade, and you can put that 20% in there each month. 401k or IRA. Super important to max those as well. So you want to be putting in, like I contribute 10% of our paychecks to our 401ks every month. We're W-2 employees, so we have a 401k. If you're self-employed, you could set up an IRA. And I contribute 10% until that's maxed out. So I've got the 20% of my net checks going into savings. I've got 10% that comes out before the net checks. That's a pre-tax deduction that goes into my 401k. So, when you invest in a retirement account like a 401k or IRA, you're saving the federal tax on that money because it's a pre-tax contribution. So you're basically earning an extra 20 to 35, 39%, depending on your tax bracket, on that money because you're not paying tax on it. So you're essentially, investing with house money, because money you otherwise would have paid to the IRS. Now it's in your account. It's accumulating interest over time. And so that's like a 30+% bump in that investment. So very important to max your retirement accounts. Okay, so that's a monthly budgeting system. So every month you're paying the bills at the end of the month, all of them at one time. I sit down, it takes me about 2 hours to do, hour to 2 hours to do. Get the bills paid, put the savings in the various accounts, and then total up what you've got. I have it all in a simple Excel spreadsheet once a month at the end of every month. Real estate. So I'm biased toward real estate because I'm in the real estate industry, but the average homeowner has a net worth 41 times the average renter. So we know that buying real estate is an excellent investment. And it's behind, I would say it's in front of a retirement account. It's the first and best investment anybody could make. Retirement accounts would be the second best. So buying that first home, if you don't own one already, is the first step to take. So a primary residence, when you own a primary residence, as you're making that monthly payment, you're paying down your mortgage, and the value of that home goes up over time. So you're benefiting from the appreciation of the home's value, and you're benefiting from paying down the balance on that loan. You also have tax advantages when it comes to owning a home. So depending on if you itemize your taxes, there's some tax deductions you can take advantage of. I'm not a CPA, but consult your CPA and they can go through that with you. So we want to have at least a primary residence and then a secondary residence of some kind. So it could be a vacation home. It could be a vacation home that you don't rent out, and you're going to make money on that transaction over time because that home is going to go up in value and you're going to be paying down the balance of the mortgage. You've also got interest deduction and property taxes and several write-offs that you can make there. And then purchasing an investment property. So this would be a property that you rent out. So all of these we can leverage, and they will accumulate value over time and give you tax advantages over time. So a couple things when we're investing in real estate, like I think when you're purchasing an investment property, if you're thinking of a single family home as an investment property, a good goal with that type of property is to get a rental amount that is enough to cover the cost of the mortgage and your average monthly expenses on that property. It's hard to get residential investment properties that give you a ton of cash flow, but that doesn't mean you're not making money, because you're bringing in the rental income each month. That renter is paying your mortgage for you, and the value of that home is going up over time. And that's really where you make your money. Right now, the market is the hottest it's been in a long time. Values in the Phoenix area are going up 30% year over year. So a $500,000 home that goes up 30%, that's $150,000 that it's going up in value in a year. Now that's an abnormal market. A more average market, a home is going to appreciate at a rate of about 5% year over year. But when you add that to your tax savings and then the rental income that you're bringing in on a property, it's a good return on your investment, even if you're not pocketing money every month. So you want to think about that, from the longer term perspective. Something I recommend for everybody when you own a home is to take out a home equity line of credit on your property. So a home equity line of credit is like basically operates like a credit card. It's a revolving line of credit, and you're using your home's equity with that revolving line of credit. And so you don't make payments on it unless you owe a balance. So say I take out a home equity loan for $150,000 on my home. I could just leave it sitting there at a zero balance, but I've got that loan in place. I have a checkbook with it. I have a debit card with it. And at any point, if I wanted to take money off that line of credit, I've got it there as reserves. So some good things that you could use that line of credit for, one would be remodeling your home. So if you do a thoughtful remodel without going crazy, especially if your home is dated, that can really add a lot of value for the home. Remodeling your kitchen is where you're going to get the most value. Master bedroom would be next, backyard. But as long as you don't go crazy, and if you do it right, you can basically pay for the remodel with the increased value that you get on the home. So you could leverage a home equity line of credit to make those renovations. And that way you're not pulling money out of investments that you have in the stock market and losing the interest that you would be earning there. Having the home equity line of credit is also a good reserve for most people to have. So if you've got a $150,000 line of credit there, if you ran into some kind of major financial emergency, you've got that credit line there that you could tap into. A lot of times when people run into a financial emergency, they're not in a position to qualify for a loan. So it's too late to get a home equity line of credit at that point. So getting that in place right away, it puts you in a position where it's there in case you need it. You can also leverage a home equity line of credit to buy additional real estate. So if you were going to add an investment property to your portfolio and you have that $150,000 line of credit, you can take money out of the line of credit and use that as your down payment and closing costs on an investment property. So you're acquiring another property without coming out of pocket. You're using the equity in your primary residence and leveraging that to add to your real estate portfolio. So several different ways you can use that. And I think that's a great way to go. Danielle and I have one that sits on our primary residence. We recently finished a second home. And once we've got that property complete, I'll take one out on that home as well and just let it sit there. And it's available if I want to leverage it down the road. And thinking in terms of like, we get people coming in wanting a 15-year mortgage. And you can do anywhere from a 10-year mortgage all the way up to a 30-year mortgage. There's even some 40-year products that have come out now at a higher interest rate. I am of the mindset that you should keep a 30-year mortgage until you hit your retirement years. Reason being, rates are still relatively low. So as long as interest rates are relatively low, you don't want to pay off a mortgage because you can leverage that money by investing it into the stock market. So I'll give you an example. So if you buy a home and you put 20% down, you're not paying PMI, so you're putting yourself in the best position to get the best terms on the mortgage. But putting anything additional down is not a huge savings, and here's why. So say your interest rate is 4.5% on a 30-year fixed mortgage. If you put an extra $100,000 down, you're saving 4.5% interest on that $100,000. So that's good. But if you took that $100,000 and put it into the stock market and you're making 7 to 8% on that $100,000, you're now making an extra spread of 3.5% on that money versus paying it down on your mortgage. So you can leverage the mortgage and the lower rate on a mortgage by taking that extra money and investing it instead of paying it down on the loan. Now, if you took that money and went out and bought a boat or something, then you're not getting ahead. So if you're using that money to invest it, you are getting ahead. So leveraging a low interest rate loan like a mortgage, I think is the way to go. And for me personally, I'll keep a 30-year mortgage until we get to our retirement years, and then I will accelerate the payments on those loans and get them paid off within 12 months as we're coming into retirement, pulling from our investment accounts. But meanwhile, that whole period of time, we've been earning interest on that extra money instead of paying it down on the mortgage. Same thing with a 15-year mortgage. So 15-year mortgage, you're making a higher payment to pay the loan off faster. But instead of making that higher payment, if you took that extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month and stuck it into your brokerage account and earned 7 or 8% interest on it, you're earning additional spread on that money versus paying it down on the mortgage. So one other point with that I think is very important is that gives you additional liquid savings. So sometimes I see people who put all of their money into making extra payments on their mortgage, and they've got a lot of equity in their home, which is great, and that's net worth. So that is like wealth that they've accumulated that's sitting in their home. But the problem is if they need to tap into that money, if they have a medical emergency or some kind of major issue that comes up, it's hard to get that money out of the home. Whereas if they had been putting that money into a brokerage account where it's earning interest, very easy to then transfer that money from the brokerage account to a checking account to use it in an urgent situation. So it gives you more stability the more liquid savings you have. The old adage, cash is king. Cash is always king, having that money available. So that's real estate. How do we save money and how do we accumulate that liquid savings over a period of time? And so it's back to having a systematic plan for saving every single month. So there's what's called the rule of 72. So if you take your average rate of interest and divide it into 72, that gives you the number of years it would take your money to double at that rate of interest. So at a rate of interest of 7.5%, which is about what the stock market at S&P 500 has averaged over the last 30 years, your money is going to double every 10 years. So if I threw 100,000 into the stock market today and just let it marinate there for 10 years, it would turn into 200,000 if I average 7.5% return without adding a single dollar to it over those 10 years. So that's called compounding interest. And that is the power of accumulating wealth, but it takes time for that money to build up. So it doesn't happen overnight. You know, if you're working on a 20, 25, or 30-year savings plan and you're adding money into the market every single month for 20, 25, 30 years, that money triples plus over that period of time and becomes a huge amount of money. But it's got to be systematic and it's got to be over a long period of time. So having that automatic deduction coming out of your checking account every month, even if you're starting at a small number, just building that habit of monthly systematic savings is how you get to the large wealth accumulation when you hit your retirement years. So I think everybody should set up an automatic distribution going into a brokerage account that comes out every single month, and it's just systematized. Couple other things that we contribute to 529 for our children. So I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that I want to be able to pay for our kids' college. That's part of the legacy that I want to provide for our children. So you can open a 529 college savings plan, which operates similar to like a 401k or IRA, where it's pre-tax contributions into the account. And that money, that money that you otherwise would have paid to the IRS, you're earning interest on it as it sits in the account. And then when your kids hit college age, you can pull that money out and use it for educational expenses, for college tuition and board and all of that. And so, you know, we once our kids were born, we set up those accounts right away, and we started with a small amount, just a few $100s a month, and let that go in every single month as an automatic ACH out of our checking account. I don't even think about it. It just happens. And now that money has accumulated into multiple tens of thousands of dollars, and our kids are only 5 and 7 years old. So that's a tax savings for you. It's also a way to help add legacy for your kids. So that's just a few of the things that Danielle and I work on, and would love to talk to you about that more. Feel free to reach out to me, and hope you guys are doing well.